Hello, friends, and welcome back to Sovereign Judgment, where ordinary homeowners discover that the most dangerous animal in suburbia is an HOA president holding a laminated rulebook. Today's story begins with a 12-foot trampoline, a clipboard, and one woman's heroic attempt to classify childhood laughter as a structural emergency. Tell me where you're listening from in the comments, because I need to know whether this species of neighborhood authority is native to your area too. All right, let's bounce. The first indication that my children's trampoline had become a threat to civilized society arrived at 7:42 on a Tuesday morning, attached to my front door with blue painter's tape. Not tucked beneath the doormat, not placed in the mailbox, attached directly to the glass, at eye level, like a ransom note written by someone whose only demand was stricter lawn edging. The notice was printed on cream-colored cardstock, thick enough to stop a small-caliber argument. At the top sat the gold-embossed crest of the Juniper Hollow Residential Association. 2 oak trees, 3 rooftops, and a decorative fountain nobody in the neighborhood had ever actually seen. Beneath it, in 18-point bold type, were the words, "Immediate Safety Hazard Abatement Order." I read it twice while wearing pizza-patterned socks and holding a mug of coffee that had already gone cold, which was more or less my natural state before 8 in the morning. According to the notice, the 12-foot trampoline in my enclosed backyard represented an unapproved recreational apparatus, presenting an imminent danger to residents, visitors, neighboring structures, migratory wildlife, and the aesthetic integrity of Juniper Hollow. Migratory wildlife. Our most frequent airborne visitor was a pigeon named Derek who ate mulch. The notice ordered me to remove the trampoline within 72 hours, or face a fine of £250 per day, plus inspection costs, administrative processing fees, and something called a community harmony assessment. I stared through the kitchen window at the alleged instrument of suburban collapse. It was a standard 12-foot round trampoline, with a safety enclosure, padded springs, a locking zipper, and 6 steel legs anchored into the ground. It sat 38 feet from the nearest property line, and 71 feet from the nearest house. The black mesh net moved gently in the morning breeze, like a jellyfish waiting for children. My 8-year-old son, Noah, was already outside. He stood beside the trampoline wearing 1 dinosaur slipper and 1 rain boot, because Noah approached footwear the way abstract painters approached perspective. "Dad," he called, "can I bounce before school?" "Apparently not," I said. "Why?" "It's threatening the migratory wildlife." Noah looked up. Derek the pigeon sat on the fence, watching us with the vacant confidence of a bird who had never paid council tax. "He seems okay. That's what he wants you to think." My 11-year-old daughter, Lily, rolled into the kitchen in her wheelchair and took the notice from my hand. Lily had been born with a spinal condition that limited the strength and movement in her legs. She could stand with support, transfer independently, and beat every adult in our family at Mario Kart with the cold precision of a professional assassin. The trampoline had been her idea. More accurately, the accessible step platform beside it had been her idea. I had built a wide timber transfer bench so she could move from her chair to the trampoline entrance without being lifted. Once inside, she bounced seated or on her knees, while Noah performed moves he described as advanced gymnastics, and I described as a future insurance conversation. Lily read the notice. Her face tightened. "Do we have to get rid of it?" That was the moment the notice stopped being funny. Not completely, obviously. Community harmony assessment was still doing extraordinary work, but our house at 1847 Juniper Hollow Lane was the first place Lily had ever been able to move through without asking for help. The front entrance had no step. The hallway was 42 inches wide. Her bedroom door opened outward. The downstairs bathroom had reinforced walls, a roll-under sink, and enough turning space for her chair. We had spent 11 months looking for it. My wife, Rachel, had died 3 years earlier after a fast, brutal illness that left our family feeling as though somebody had removed a load-bearing wall and expected the rest of us to remain standing. Selling our old house had been part necessity and part survival. Every room there held a version of her. Juniper Hollow was supposed to be the place where the 3 of us learned how to breathe normally again. The trampoline had helped. Noah bounced when he was angry. Lily bounced when she was frustrated. Sometimes they lay on it together after dinner. staring at the sky and arguing about whether clouds had personalities. The trampoline was not attractive in the way the HOA understood attractiveness. It was not beige. It did not produce seasonal flowers. It could not be trimmed into the shape of a tasteful sphere. But it made my children laugh. That gave it more architectural value than every decorative column in Juniper Hollow combined. I folded the notice and placed it beside my laptop. Then I opened a spreadsheet. This was not because I was angry. It was because I work as an accessibility compliance consultant, and opening a spreadsheet is how people in my profession experience emotion. I spend most of my working life reviewing building plans, public facilities, playgrounds, offices, and pedestrian routes to determine whether they meet accessibility standards. I measure clearances. I check gradients. I photograph door thresholds with the enthusiasm other men reserve for sports cars. At that point, however, I had no intention of turning the trampoline dispute into work. I planned to call the HOA, explain that the trampoline was safe, send them the manufacturer's documentation, and return to my peaceful existence of cold coffee and mismatched socks. That plan survived until 9:13 a.m. At exactly 9:13, a golf cart rolled into my driveway. It was white, electric, and fitted with a flashing amber light on the roof. The side panel displayed magnetic lettering that read, Juniper Hollow Compliance Unit, as though the vehicle belonged to a tactical division specializing in hydrangeas. Behind the wheel sat Patricia Bellwether, president of the Juniper Hollow Residential Association. Patricia wore a coral floral tracksuit that looked like a botanical garden had exploded inside a luggage carousel. Her white trainers were spotless. Her blonde hair formed a rigid helmet that appeared capable of surviving a minor building collapse. A clipboard rested against the steering wheel. Naturally, Patricia parked diagonally across my driveway, blocking both cars despite having approximately 40 feet of available curb. She stepped out with the posture of a naval commander boarding a captured vessel. Mr. Daniel Mercer? That's me. I'm Patricia Bellwether, Association President. I recognized the emergency vehicle. She glanced back at the golf cart, uncertain whether I had complimented her. I'm here regarding compliance matter JARA 24-1187. That sounds more exciting than trampoline. Her smile narrowed like a drawbridge being raised. The association does not consider resident safety amusing. Neither do I. She lifted her clipboard and read from the top page, in a voice that sounded like a teaspoon trapped in a waste disposal unit. Pursuant to Section 8, Subsection 4, Paragraph C, of the Juniper Hollow Community Standards, no temporary recreational structure exceeding 6 feet in height may be installed without prior architectural approval. The trampoline frame is 35 inches high. The enclosure reaches 9 feet. The enclosure is a net. It is part of the apparatus. So is the instruction manual. That's 11 inches tall. Did you include it? Her left eyebrow twitched. Patricia Bellwether was accustomed to two types of homeowner, the apologetic kind and the angry kind. She understood apologies because they confirmed her authority. She understood anger because it allowed her to remain calm while describing somebody else as disruptive. What she did not understand was a third category, a person asking follow-up questions. The net contributes to the total vertical profile, she said. Where is vertical profile defined in the standards? It is commonly understood. By whom? The board. Where is that recorded? Her clipboard shifted slightly. The board is not obligated to provide a legal seminar every time a resident violates a clearly stated rule. I'm not asking for a seminar. I'm asking for the definition you use to issue a £250 per day fine. Her lips tightened as though she had just tasted a lemon that owed her money. The structure is also visible from neighboring properties. So is my roof. The trampoline is inconsistent with the visual character of the community. That wasn't in the notice. It falls under Section 3, Paragraph 9, governing visual nuisances. What makes it a nuisance? We received a complaint. From which neighbor? Complaints are confidential. How many complaints? That information is also confidential. 1. Patricia drew herself up with the moral authority of someone who had once reported a recycling bin for appearing before sunset. The number is irrelevant. So 1. She slapped the clipboard against her palm. Mr. Mercer, you have 72 hours. If the structure remains after that period, daily penalties will begin. Continued non-compliance may result in legal action against your property. Lily had rolled onto the porch behind me. Patricia saw her. For half a second, the performance slipped. Her eyes moved from Lily to the ramp beside the front steps, then back to me. Lily said, "I use the trampoline too." Patricia adjusted the papers on her clipboard. "That does not alter the governing documents." "No," I said. "But it might alter how you choose to enforce them." Her chin rose. "The rules apply equally to everyone. That's not always the same as applying them fairly." Patricia made a small noise like an offended goose, discovering a locked bread cupboard. "I will return Friday at 9 o'clock for verification." "Do you have permission to enter the backyard?" "As association president, I have inspection authority. Please show me the section that allows entry without notice or consent." "This is your notice." "This notice orders removal. It doesn't request access." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the expression of a woman mentally drafting a newsletter. "I'm sure we'll speak again." She returned to the golf cart, reversed over the edge of my lawn, corrected too sharply, and drove away with the amber light flashing in broad daylight, like a toaster responding to a national emergency. I watched her disappear around the corner. Lily looked up at me. "Is she going to take it?" "No." "Are you sure?" I looked at the notice in my hand. "No," I said, "but I will be." By Wednesday morning, the first fine had arrived. Patricia had apparently decided that 72 hours was less of a deadline and more of a creative suggestion. The violation portal showed a £250 charge for failure to initiate timely abatement. At 10:06 a.m., a second charge appeared, £85 for supplementary visual inspection. At 10:14, the neighborhood Facebook group received a new post from Patricia. It began, "Dear Juniper Hollow residents, recent events have highlighted the importance of maintaining safe, inclusive, and visually harmonious outdoor environments for all members of our community." Patricia used the word inclusive 4 times. She then explained that certain oversized recreational equipment had been installed without approval, and that the board was taking decisive action before a preventable tragedy occurred. The post included a photograph of my backyard. She had taken it through the gap between my side gate and fence. No children appeared in the image, but Lily's transfer platform did. Patricia had circled it in red and labeled it unauthorized accessory structure. I stared at the screen until my coffee achieved the temperature of pond water. Then I took screenshots. I downloaded the post as a PDF. I saved the photograph metadata. I added a new tab to my spreadsheet titled Public Statements. At 11:30, my next-door neighbor, Denise Harwood, knocked on the door. Denise was 67, 5 feet tall, and moved with the unstoppable momentum of a shopping trolley on a sloped car park. She wore gardening gloves even when she was not gardening, possibly because she no longer trusted the world to remain clean. "I saw Patricia's post," she said. "So did I. She's talking about your trampoline. She has preserved just enough ambiguity to claim she's talking about another 12-foot trampoline with an accessible transfer bench at this exact address." Denise leaned closer. "I complained about her golf cart." "When?" "Last September. She parked it across the pavement during the autumn wreath inspection." "There was an autumn wreath inspection?" She said mine was tonally aggressive. I looked at the orange wreath on Denise's door. What was wrong with it? It had a purple ribbon. "That animal." Denise lowered her voice. "She's the complaint." "What?" "Patricia is the person who complained about your trampoline. I heard her talking to Janet Pike at the mailbox kiosk. Janet asked who reported it, and Patricia said, 'The board has an independent duty to observe.' I wrote that sentence down." Denise watched me. "You keep records?" "I keep records about records." Her eyes brightened. "I knew I liked you." By Thursday, the fine total reached £920. The HOA added a case administration fee of £150, a photographic documentation fee of £65, and a £120 charge for accelerated board review. I emailed the property management company requesting the original complaint, the meeting minutes authorizing enforcement, the definition of recreational structure, the inspection policy, the fine schedule, and the architectural review criteria. Patricia replied 8 minutes later. "Mr. Mercer, Your attempts to bury volunteers in excessive documentation will not delay enforcement. Regards, Patricia Bellwether, President Juniper Hollow, Residential Association Protecting Standards. Preserving value. Her email signature contained a photograph of the clubhouse fountain. The fountain had been broken for 2 years. I responded, Patricia, please identify which of the 6 requested documents you consider excessive. Regards, Daniel. She did not answer. Friday arrived with low clouds and the thick, electric stillness that comes before a summer storm. At 8:58 a.m., Patricia's golf cart stopped outside my house. This time she had brought 2 board members. Janet Pike, board secretary, sat beside her, wearing a pale green visor and holding a folder against her chest like a flotation device. Behind them rode Gary Fenwick, treasurer, a narrow man with khaki trousers ironed so sharply they could have opened mail. Patricia's clipboard was larger than before. I had not known clipboards came in escalation sizes. She parked in the driveway again. I stood beside the locked side gate. Good morning, she called. Debatable. We are here to verify removal. It hasn't been removed. I can see that. Then the verification is complete. Patricia climbed out. Open the gate. No. Her expression changed like a restaurant customer being informed that the chef could not remove salt from the ocean. Section 11, subsection 2, grants the association reasonable access for compliance inspections, with 48 hours written notice. You received written notice Tuesday. I received an abatement order. It did not specify an inspection time, identify inspectors, or request entry. This is obstruction. This is a locked gate. Gary Fenwick examined the pavement with the deep concentration of a man hoping to become invisible through accounting. Patricia stepped closer. You are preventing the board from fulfilling its fiduciary duty. I'm asking the board to follow its own procedure. The distinction is semantic. The distinction is the lock. Patricia's nostrils flared like a small horse detecting tax fraud. She turned to Janet. Record that the homeowner denied lawful access. Janet opened her folder. I said, Janet, before you write that, would you like a copy of Section 11? Janet paused. Patricia snapped. She has the governing documents. Great. Page 94. Janet looked at Patricia. Patricia looked at Janet. Gary looked at a cloud. I handed Janet a printed copy through the fence gap. She read silently. Her shoulders sank by approximately half an inch. Patricia said, the board's interpretation has always permitted visual inspection. From common property, I said. Not entry into enclosed private areas. You are hiding a dangerous condition. It's visible from where you're standing. I cannot assess the anchoring. I sent the installation certificate yesterday. I have not reviewed it. You confirmed receipt. I confirmed receipt of an email. I did not validate its contents. Gary cleared his throat. It was a tiny, dry sound like a mouse attempting parliamentary procedure. Patricia, perhaps we should schedule proper notice. She turned on him. The homeowner has already demonstrated deliberate noncompliance. The homeowner is standing 6 feet away, I said. Patricia ignored me. She raised her phone. I am contacting law enforcement. For the trampoline? For obstruction of an authorized inspection. That should be educational. She made the call. 23 minutes later, Officer Dale Mercer arrived in a patrol car. Despite sharing my surname, Dale and I were not related. In a town the size of Alder Creek, there were 6 Mercers, 4 Bakers, and 1 unfortunate dentist named Dr. Fang. Officer Mercer stepped out slowly. He was in his late 50s, broad through the shoulders, with gray hair, and the permanent expression of a man who had once been dispatched to mediate a dispute over a wind chime and had never fully recovered. Patricia marched toward him, clipboard raised like a ceremonial weapon. Officer, thank goodness. This homeowner is obstructing an official safety inspection. Officer Mercer looked at me, then at the trampoline visible over the fence, then at Patricia's golf cart, which was blocking half the pavement. What kind of inspection? He asked. HOA compliance. Is anyone injured? Not yet. He took a slow breath. Is there an immediate danger? The structure is unapproved. That's not what I asked. Patricia's voice climbed half an octave, like a smoke alarm discovering musical theater. It presents an attractive nuisance and a liability exposure to every resident in this association. Officer Mercer looked through the gate. The trampoline stood empty. Noah's foam football rested in the grass. Derek the pigeon pecked at a flower pot. "Looks quiet," he said. "She is refusing access." I said. Patricia waved a hand. "The homeowner is refusing access." Officer Mercer turned to me. "Do they have a court order?" "No." "Emergency authority?" "No." "Did you invite them in?" "No." He turned back to Patricia. "Then they don't go in." She stiffened. "Section 11 of our covenants grants inspection rights. Then enforce it through your civil process. This is our civil process." "No. This is you calling me." Because a gate stayed closed. Denise Harwood had appeared on her porch. 2 houses down, someone was pretending to clean a car window that had already been clean for at least 10 minutes. Patricia lowered her voice. "Officer, if a child is injured because you failed to intervene," he held up one hand. "Do not finish that sentence." Patricia's mouth closed. Officer Mercer looked at the golf cart. "Move that off the pavement. We're engaged in official association business. You're blocking wheelchair access." Lily had emerged onto our front ramp. She stopped behind me. Officer Mercer glanced at her chair, then at the golf cart, then back at Patricia. His face became very still. "Move it now." Patricia returned to the cart with the rigid dignity of a duchess being asked to relocate a wheelie bin. Officer Mercer waited until she parked it against the curb. Then he looked at all of us. "This is a trampoline behind a locked fence. Handle it with paperwork." He got back into his patrol car and left. It was the most accurate sentence spoken all week. Patricia did handle it with paperwork. She handled it with paperwork the way a leaf blower handles loose gravel. On Saturday, I received a notice of disciplinary hearing. On Sunday, a £500 repeat violation enhancement appeared on my account. On Monday, Patricia mailed every household a 4-page safety bulletin featuring statistics about trampoline injuries copied from a national medical website. She highlighted a sentence about unsupervised use, but omitted the next paragraph recommending safety nets, anchor systems, and adult supervision. Our trampoline had all 3. On Tuesday, she posted a poll in the neighborhood group. Should Juniper Hollow permit oversized structures that threaten safety and property values? The options were A. No. B. Absolutely not. C. Safety must come first. The poll had all the democratic range of a restaurant menu offering soup, liquid soup, or soup for the children. I documented everything. The fine total climbed to £2,795. I remained calm until Patricia sent a letter addressed directly to Lily. It arrived in a white envelope with her full name handwritten on the front. Inside was a single page explaining that recreational enjoyment sometimes requires reasonable sacrifice for the collective good. Lily read it at the kitchen table. "She thinks I'm the problem," she said. That was the closest I came to losing my temper. I could feel anger rising through me like a lift with a snapped control cable. I wanted to call Patricia. I wanted to drive to the clubhouse. I wanted to explain, in language stripped of professional courtesy, exactly what kind of adult sends compliance philosophy to an 11-year-old. Instead, I took the letter. I scanned it. I placed the original in a plastic sleeve. I added a row to the spreadsheet. Then I poured out my cold coffee and made another cup. It was still hot when I called Salvatore Moretti. Sal Moretti designed inclusive playgrounds. He operated from a workshop in the industrial district under a sign reading, "Moretti Recreational Engineering. Play is serious business." Sal was 6'4", shaped like a vending machine that had developed strong opinions about municipal procurement. He wore denim overalls, steel-toed boots, and tiny red reading glasses that sat on the end of his nose with the structural confidence of a butterfly on a bulldozer. When I arrived, he was standing beside a half-built climbing frame, eating olives from a jar with a pair of electrical pliers. "Daniel Mercer," he said. "The ramp man. Transfer platform man. Same tribe. We had met 18 months earlier during a playground accessibility review. Sal had submitted plans for a public park featuring an elevated wheelchair-accessible play route, sensory panels, inclusive swings, and a ground-level trampoline bay. The design had been excellent. The city's first review had rejected it because one handrail extended 14 millimeters too far into a turning space. Sal had corrected it in 20 minutes and complained for 6 months. I showed him Patricia's notices. He read them in silence. At the letter to Lily, he stopped chewing. Who sends this to a child? Patricia Bellwether. Of course that's her name. You know her? No, but I know the type. A Patricia Bellwether is a Karen who has completed advanced training. He read the original violation language again. Unapproved recreational apparatus, he said. Yes. Hazardous. Apparently to birds. Needs architectural approval. That's the official position. Sal removed his glasses and smiled. It was the smile of a man who had just discovered that an enemy fortress was built entirely from cake. Daniel, my friend, your mistake was buying a trampoline. I'm beginning to see that. You should have installed recreational accessibility infrastructure. I stared at him. He pointed the olive pliers at me. They want paperwork? We will give them paperwork with appendices. I don't want to exploit Lily's disability. His smile disappeared. Good, because we won't. He leaned against the workbench. We build something she actually benefits from. Something safer. Something independently reviewed. Something your son can use too. We follow every law, every setback, every drainage requirement, every equipment standard, every access guideline. We invite the city to inspect it. How large? Sal put his glasses back on. How much do you dislike this woman? I'm a compliance professional. I don't quantify emotions. You made a spreadsheet, didn't you? 7 tabs. Then let us speak professionally. He unrolled a sheet of graph paper. Your current trampoline is 12 feet in diameter. That gives you about 113 square feet of jumping surface. Correct. What if we install 226? Exactly double. I enjoy precision. He drew a rectangle. 20 feet long. 11 feet 4 inches wide. In-ground bed. Flush perimeter. Shock-absorbing surface. Wheelchair transfer platform. 48-inch access route. 1 in 20 ramp. So legally it's a walking surface, and not technically a ramp under the local standard. Continuous edge protection. Naturally. Drainage? Subsurface chamber tied into a dry well, fully contained on your property. Net enclosure? Commercial grade. Height? 9 feet. The same height they objected to. Sal grinned. But this time the city will approve it. I looked at the drawing. This would be an inclusive play installation. Yes. Permanent. Yes. Engineered. Yes. Twice the size. He placed one huge hand over his heart. Daniel, never threaten a playground designer with safety. Safety is where we keep the heavy machinery. That was the moment I knew I would follow Sal Moretti anywhere. For the next 12 days, I became the most dangerous kind of homeowner an HOA can encounter. A patient man with professional contacts and a printer that accepts A3 paper. We began with the property survey. The proposed installation sat 41 feet from the rear boundary, 34 feet from the east boundary, and 29 feet from the house. The HOA required 10. We commissioned a drainage report. We obtained soil-bearing data. Sal's structural engineer, Beatrice Cole, calculated frame loading, lateral restraint, spring bed tension, and anchoring requirements. Beatrice was a compact woman with silver hair, square glasses, and a voice as calm as a librarian defusing a bomb. She reviewed the design at my kitchen table. This is excessive, she said. Unsafe? No. Excessively safe. The frame could support a rhinoceros experiencing personal growth. Can you put that in the report? I can put, design load exceeds anticipated use. Less vivid. More insurable. The city planning office classified the project as exempt from building height restrictions because the enclosure was safety equipment rather than an occupied structure. The Parks and Accessibility Department reviewed the transfer system. The planning officer asked whether the installation was commercial. I said no. He asked why the plans included emergency egress notes, tactile markers, impact attenuation data, and a maintenance schedule extending to 2046. I said, the HOA requested a safety response. He looked at the 147-page submission. Then he looked at me. Did they? Yes. He stamped the application. Approved. The fictional city of Alder Creek did not officially approve ADA products because that was not how accessibility law worked. What it could do was certify that a specific installation complied with the applicable accessibility design standards and approve it as an inclusive recreational facility. The approval letter stated, the proposed inclusive trampoline and transfer system has been reviewed for accessibility compliance and is approved for residential installation under permit ACAR 4418. Sal read the sentence aloud. ADIA approved enough for a title. Legally accurate enough for me. We also submitted the design to the HOA Architectural Committee. Patricia acknowledged receipt at 4:51 p.m. on a Friday. At 5:03, she rejected it. Her email consisted of 3 sentences. The existing violation must be cured before any new application can be considered. The board will not reward non-compliance. Remove the trampoline immediately. She did not open the plans. I knew this because the document portal tracked access. Patricia had downloaded the cover letter but none of the attachments. I forwarded the rejection to the property management company and requested an appeal. Patricia replied that appeals were heard at the next scheduled board meeting, 26 days away. Meanwhile, daily fines continued. The account balance reached £6,545. Then Patricia made the mistake that eventually removed her from office. She published the full rejection letter in the Facebook group. She wrote, "Mr. Mercer has attempted to evade a straightforward safety order by proposing an even larger structure. The board will not be intimidated by technical jargon, supposed accessibility claims, or unnecessary government paperwork. A trampoline is a trampoline. Supposed accessibility claims." I stared at those 3 words. Then I took a screenshot. 11 minutes later, Denise Harwood commented, "Patricia, what do you mean by supposed?" The post disappeared, but 43 residents had already seen it. 9 had taken screenshots, and one of them was Janet Pike, the board secretary. Janet called me that evening. Her voice shook. "I didn't approve that post. I assumed you hadn't." She said the board supported it. "Did the board vote?" "No." "Did the board vote on the fines?" A long silence followed. Then Janet said, "Some of them." "How many?" "The first one." "And the rest?" She said repeat fines were automatic. "Are they?" Another silence. "I don't know." "Janet, is there a recorded hearing decision?" "No." "Was I offered an opportunity to be heard before the fines began?" "No." She exhaled. "I think we have a problem. We have several." I numbered them. The next morning, the property management company suspended new fines pending review. Patricia responded by scheduling an emergency enforcement meeting on her driveway. I know this because she delivered invitations to selected board members and accidentally copied me on the email. The message read, "We must maintain a unified front. Daniel Mercer is using his daughter's condition to manipulate public opinion and undermine lawful authority." I forwarded it to my solicitor, the management company, and every board member. Then I added it to the spreadsheet. At 6:20 that evening, Gary Fenwick resigned as treasurer. His resignation email contained only 1 sentence. I joined the board to review landscaping invoices. The following Monday, Sal's crew arrived at 7:30 a.m. They came in 3 vehicles. The first was a flatbed truck carrying steel frame sections, rolled safety surfacing, and enough timber formwork to suggest we were constructing a modest embassy. The second hauled a compact excavator. The third was Sal's pickup, which had a bumper sticker reading, "Measure twice, argue once." We had already removed the original trampoline the night before. Technically, I had complied with Patricia's order 12 hours ahead of the installation deadline imposed by the management company's review. At 7:47, the excavator rolled through the side access. At 8:02, Sal marked the excavation perimeter in orange paint. At 8:11, Patricia's golf cart appeared at the end of the street. The amber light was flashing. Of course it was. She drove toward us at a speed normally associated with airport luggage vehicles and minor coups. This time she wore white trousers, a navy polo embroidered with the HOA crest, and a silk scarf tied around her neck like she was about to inspect a yacht she did not own. Her clipboard had been replaced by a leather portfolio. This was apparently formal combat. She stopped in front of my house and stepped out before the cart had fully settled. "What is happening?" Sal looked at the excavator, then at the marked rectangle, then at me. "Breakfast?" he suggested. Patricia marched up the driveway. "You are under an active enforcement order. The original trampoline has been removed," I said. Her eyes flicked toward the backyard. "You cannot install another one." "This isn't another one." Sal extended a hand. "Salvatore Moretti. Moretti Recreational Engineering." Patricia looked at his hand as though it contained a live beetle. What are you constructing? An inclusive, in-ground recreational movement system. It is a trampoline, in the same way your golf cart is a police car. I looked at Sal. He shrugged. She started early. Patricia opened her portfolio. The association rejected this application. The application was not reviewed, I said. It was reviewed by me. You opened one of 17 files. I reviewed the relevant material. The structural drawings were file 4. I am not required to personally read every technical document submitted by a resident. Sal's expression softened with genuine wonder. That is the finest sentence I have heard before 8:30 in the morning. Patricia pointed toward the excavator. Stop work immediately. Sal did not move. The excavator operator, Big Mike Delaney, leaned out of the cab. Big Mike looked like a refrigerator that had learned to operate hydraulic equipment. His beard began near his cheekbones and continued downward with the confidence of an invasive species. Permit says start, he called. Patricia raised her voice. The HOA says stop. Big Mike held up the city permit. This paper has a stamp. So does ours, Patricia said. He looked at me. Does hers have a stamp? No. Big Mike nodded. Stamp wins. He returned to the controls. Patricia's face tightened like a drawstring bag containing several angry ferrets. You are knowingly violating community standards. I handed her a folder. Inside were the city approval, accessibility compliance letter, stamped site plan, drainage report, engineering certification, contractor insurance, work schedule, neighbor notification receipts, and a copy of the HOA rule she had cited. The relevant sentence was highlighted. Temporary recreational structures required approval. The new installation was permanent. Patricia read the page, then she read it again. This distinction is artificial. It's your wording. The board intended all recreational structures. Then the board should have written all recreational structures. You are exploiting a drafting oversight. I'm following the rule. She looked at the permit. What does accessibility compliance have to do with a trampoline? Sal stepped forward. Would you like the 6-minute answer or the 45-minute answer with diagrams? I would like you off association property. I'm on Daniel's property. You entered through association-controlled roads. So did the pizza delivery guy. Are you planning to challenge pepperoni? She turned to me. If you proceed, the board will seek an injunction. You're welcome to apply. We will recover legal costs. If you prevail. Patricia's voice became very quiet. You think this is clever? No, I said. I think it's approved. For 3 days, the backyard became a construction site. The crew excavated a pit 22 feet long, 13 feet wide, and 34 inches deep. They installed drainage stone, a perforated collection pipe, steel retaining panels, and a reinforced frame anchored at 16 points. The trampoline bed measured exactly 226 square feet, double the jumping area of the original. Along the western side, Sal built a 48-inch wide access route, leading to a transfer platform with handholds, edge protection, and a sliding entry panel. The surrounding surface used impact-absorbing rubber tiles rated for the maximum fall height. The enclosure rose 9 feet. From Patricia's upstairs bedroom, I imagine it looked like a black mesh cathedral dedicated to the patron saint of administrative consequences. Residents stopped by throughout the installation. Denise brought lemonade. Janet Pike came without her visor and asked Sal questions about the transfer platform. 3 families asked whether their children could try it when finished. At 4:12 on the second afternoon, Patricia arrived with a private building inspector named Colin Shreve. Colin stepped out of a silver SUV, so clean it looked afraid of weather. He wore a reflective vest over a dress shirt and carried a laser measure in a leather case. Patricia introduced him loudly. Mr. Shreve has been retained to document code violations, I asked. By the HOA? By concerned residents. Which residents? That is confidential. Colin looked at the stamped plans. City inspected this? Rough inspection this morning, Sal said. Any issues? One anchor needed a larger washer. Corrected? Before lunch. Colin examined the frame. He measured the setbacks. He checked the permit number on his phone. Patricia followed him around, speaking in urgent whispers that carried across the entire garden. What about the height? Safety enclosure. The excavation? Permitted. The drainage? Contained. The size? No residential maximum in the municipal code. The visual impact? Not a building matter. She pointed at the transfer platform. What about that ramp? Colin crouched, measured the gradient, and stood. It's 1 in 20. So, it's a sloped walking surface. It is obviously a ramp, not under the applicable definition. Patricia turned toward me with a look like I had personally altered mathematics. You designed it that way. Yes. To avoid ramp regulations. No. To exceed them without triggering unnecessary handrail requirements. Colin looked at the platform again. It's good work. Patricia's head snapped toward him. You were retained to identify problems. I was retained to inspect. There must be something. He glanced around. The west edge of the temporary excavation barrier needs another warning marker. Sal immediately clipped an orange flag to it. Done, he said. Colin closed his case. Patricia stared at him. That's it? That's what I found. She made a sound like a kettle discovering betrayal. How much do I owe you? 450 pounds. Denise, watching from her patio, laughed so hard she had to sit down. The final city inspection took place Friday at 10 a.m. Accessibility Officer Marjorie Keene arrived with Planning Inspector Thomas Vale. Marjorie used a power wheelchair and wore a red blazer that made every person around her look underdressed by constitutional mandate. Thomas was tall, thin, and carried his tablet against his chest, like a priest protecting a sacred text. They checked the access path. They tested the entry panel. They measured the transfer height, clear floor area, edge protection, and maneuvering space. Lily demonstrated the transfer independently. She rolled beside the platform, locked her brakes, shifted across, opened the sliding panel, and moved onto the trampoline bed. Noah climbed in through the opposite entrance. Ready? He asked. Don't launch me. I never launch you. You launched me Tuesday. That was science. They began bouncing. Not high, not recklessly. Just enough for Lily's hair to lift and her laughter to carry across the garden. Marjorie watched them. Then she turned to me. This is what access is supposed to do. Patricia's voice came from behind us. This inspection is invalid. She stood outside the open side gate. I had invited officials and neighbors for the final approval. Folding chairs had been placed along the patio. Denise sat in the front row beside Janet Pike. Officer Dale Mercer stood near the driveway because Patricia had called the police before arriving, claiming an illegal public playground was operating from a private residence. Patricia had brought her leather portfolio, her HOA polo, and the expression of someone arriving at a wedding specifically to object. Thomas Vale looked at her. Excuse me? The association denied architectural approval. That is separate from municipal approval. The installation violates private covenants. That is not within my jurisdiction. Then you cannot certify it. I can certify compliance with the permit. Not while it remains unlawful. Officer Mercer rubbed the bridge of his nose. Patricia walked into the backyard. I said, Patricia, you may observe from the patio, but please do not enter the trampoline enclosure. She ignored me. Marjorie said, Ma'am, the inspection area needs to remain clear. I am the HOA president. Thomas looked at his tablet. That does not form part of the inspection criteria. Several neighbors laughed. Patricia's cheeks reddened. She pointed at Lily and Noah. Those children are actively using equipment before final approval. Thomas said, operational testing is required. This is recreational use. Lily stopped bouncing. We're testing joy, she said. Sal covered his mouth. Big Mike turned away completely, his shoulders moving like a washing machine on an uneven floor. Patricia stepped closer to the enclosure. This entire proceeding is a performance designed to embarrass the board. No, I said. It's an inspection you chose to attend. You publicized it. I notified adjoining owners as required. You invited half the neighborhood. They asked. She opened her portfolio and pulled out a document. Under Section 14, Subsection 6, the association may enter any exterior property area when necessary to prevent an immediate safety risk. Officer Mercer said, We did this already. Patricia spoke over him. I am exercising that authority now. There is no immediate risk, Marjorie said. There is an unapproved trampoline being used by children. It is being inspected by 2 city officials, I said. The city does not override our covenants. The city approval overrides your claim that it's unsafe. Patricia marched toward the entry gate. I stepped aside rather than block her. Patricia, do not enter the enclosure. I have inspection authority. You do not. I am documenting the hazard. You can document it from outside. She reached for the latch. Sal said, "Ma'am, the bed is active." Patricia pulled the gate open. Noah and Lily had stopped bouncing, but the surface still moved slightly beneath them. Patricia placed one immaculate white trainer onto the access platform. Marjorie said, "The transfer route is designed for controlled entry. Please wait until the users exit." Patricia climbed through anyway. This was the thing about Patricia Bellwether. She believed warnings were simply applause delivered by cowards. The trampoline bed dipped beneath her first foot. Her other foot followed. The surface rose. Patricia's arms moved outward. Her leather portfolio flew open. 47 pages of covenants lifted into the air like a flock of bureaucratic pigeons escaping captivity. She bounced once. Not high. Perhaps 4 inches. But Patricia reacted as though the ground had filed for divorce. She windmilled both arms, stepped backward, and landed seated on the trampoline bed. The impact launched her approximately 18 inches into the air. Her scarf rose over her face. Her clipboard struck the net. Her phone left her hand, traveled in a perfect arc, and landed inside one of Big Mike's empty lemonade cups. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Patricia bounced a second time, smaller now, her legs extended in front of her like a child, reluctantly participating in a school photograph. Noah whispered. "Should we help?" Lily whispered back. Dad warned her. Patricia grabbed the net. The flexible enclosure leaned outward, then returned her gently toward the center. She let out a sound that was half shriek, half noise a goose would reject for being too theatrical. "Turn it off," Sal said. "It doesn't have an off switch. Stop it moving. You are moving it. Get me out." "The exit is behind you," I said. "I cannot stand." Marjorie's expression remained professionally neutral, but her lips had disappeared into a line so tight it could have sliced cheese. Patricia tried to rise. Every time she pushed downward, the trampoline pushed upward, which was not malicious. It was simply committed to its core business model. She reached her knees. The bed shifted. She fell sideways into the net, rolled gently toward the center, and ended on her back beneath a slow rain of HOA paperwork. One page landed on her face. It was Section 8, Subsection 4, Paragraph C. Even the documents had timing. Officer Mercer stepped closer to the enclosure. "Ma'am, stay still. I am being assaulted by this device. You entered it. It is unstable. It's a trampoline. This is precisely the danger I warned everyone about." Thomas Vale crouched beside the frame. "The installation is functioning as designed." Patricia lifted her head. "Then the design is negligent." Beatrice Cole, the structural engineer, stood from her folding chair. "No, it isn't." Patricia pointed at her. "Who are you?" "The engineer whose report you declined to open." A murmur traveled through the neighbors, like wind through ornamental grass. Patricia sat up. "This is private association business." Janet Pike stood. "No, Patricia. It stopped being private when you posted Daniel's property online." Patricia stared at her. "You are out of order. We're not in a meeting." "I am still president." "Not for long," someone said behind Denise. Patricia twisted toward the voice, causing another small bounce. "Stop laughing." Nobody had been laughing openly until she said that. Then Big Mike made the mistake of snorting. The sound hit Sal. Sal bent forward. Denise covered her mouth with both gardening gloves. Within seconds, half the patio was shaking. Not cruelly. That was important. Nobody wanted Patricia hurt. But there are moments when human dignity slips on a banana peel of its own choosing, and laughter becomes less a decision than a weather event. Patricia crawled toward the transfer platform. Lily moved aside to give her space. Marjorie instructed her where to place her hands. Patricia ignored the instructions, attempted to step directly onto the rigid edge, lost balance again, and settled onto the platform with her legs still on the trampoline. She remained there, half in and half out, like an expensive suitcase stuck on a baggage belt. Officer Mercer offered his hand. She refused it. Big Mike offered his. She accepted his because he looked capable of lifting a small vehicle. He raised her to her feet with one arm. Patricia straightened her scarf. A sheet of paper remained stuck to the back of her polo. Denise walked over and removed it. "Community Harmony Assessment," she said, reading the heading. That finished Sal. He had to sit on the grass. Patricia snatched the page. "This installation Is not approved by the association. Thomas Vale tapped his tablet. It is approved by the city, Marjorie added, and it complies with the accessibility provisions we reviewed. Patricia pointed at me. He manipulated the process. I said, I submitted plans. He used technicalities. I followed written standards. He doubled the size out of spite. I doubled the usable surface because the rectangular bed allows 2 separate activity zones, including space for seated users. Sal, still on the grass, raised one finger. And spite. I looked at him. What? We can have layers. Patricia turned toward Officer Mercer. I want him cited for operating an unauthorized public attraction. This is a private backyard, he said. He invited residents, their guests. He created a dangerous spectacle. You entered after 3 people told you not to. I was exercising inspection authority. You did not have it. Yes, I did. No. She raised the document in her hand. Section 14. Requires an immediate emergency, Janet said. Patricia spun toward her. You do not interpret the covenants. I'm the board secretary. You record decisions. You do not make them. Janet pulled out her phone. I also record meetings. Patricia froze. Janet held up the screen. Last night you said you knew the city permit was valid, but you planned to stop the inspection because, and I quote, if Daniel gets approval, every disabled resident will expect exceptions. The patio went silent. Patricia's face changed. Disbelief disappeared first. Then anger. Then authority. What remained was the slow, pale arrival of consequence. I never said that. Janet pressed play. Patricia's own voice came through the phone, clear and sharp. If Daniel gets approval, every disabled resident will expect exceptions, and then standards become impossible to enforce. No one spoke. Even Derek the pigeon, perched on the fence, appeared to recognize that the atmosphere had shifted beyond mulch. Patricia looked at Janet. You recorded a confidential executive session? It wasn't a meeting. You were in my kitchen. You had no permission. My security camera records automatically. Patricia turned to Officer Mercer. That recording is illegal, he said. You can discuss that with a solicitor. She pointed at Janet. She has breached her fiduciary duty. Janet's voice shook, but she did not sit down. No, I think you did. Patricia looked around for support. Gary Fenwick had resigned. The other board member, Malcolm Reed, stood near the gate with his arms folded. Denise stared at Patricia with the focused disappointment of a grandmother discovering someone had cheated at bingo. Marjorie Keene rolled forward. Ms. Bellwether, accessibility is not an exception to safety or community standards. Patricia said nothing. Marjorie continued. It is part of them. Thomas Vale turned his tablet so I could see the screen. Final inspection passed. He pressed the approval button. The digital certificate arrived in my email at 10:47 a.m. Sal read it over my shoulder. Approved for residential operation. Lily said. So we can bounce? Thomas smiled. Yes. Noah zipped the enclosure. Officer Mercer looked at Patricia, then at the approved installation, then at the paper still scattered across the rubber surface. His shoulders dropped with the exhausted peace of a man reaching the end of a very long shift. She called the police on a trampoline, he said. Then she climbed into it. That was his final report on the matter. The consequences began before lunch. At 11:18, the property management company placed Patricia's enforcement authority under immediate suspension. At 12:03, the association's solicitor instructed the board to preserve all emails, text messages, meeting recordings, social posts, and violation records relating to my property. At 1:26, the management company removed every fine from my account. At 2:10, Janet sent a formal notice calling a special membership meeting. At 3:45, 17 residents submitted written requests for review of their own past violations. By Sunday evening, the number had reached 42. Patricia had spent 3 years enforcing the rules with the precision of a casino that only noticed arithmetic when the house was winning. Now residents compared letters. Denise had been fined £300 for her purple wreath ribbon. The Chens had paid £475 because their basketball hoop remained visible for 23 minutes after sunset. Malcolm Reed had received a warning because his garden hose was improperly coiled. A widower named Arthur Bell had been charged £150 after placing 2 chairs on his front porch instead of the approved maximum of 1. The records showed that Patricia had authorized 29 fines without board votes. She had conducted 12 unannounced inspections. She had used HOA money to purchase the golf cart's amber light, magnetic compliance lettering, leather portfolio, and a 640-pound body camera she had never disclosed to residents. Gary's landscaping invoices turned out to be the cleanest part of the association. The special meeting took place 11 days later in the clubhouse. 106 homeowners attended. The room had a legal occupancy of 90. The overflow stood outside beneath the covered entrance, listening through open windows. Patricia sat at the front table, wearing a cream blazer, and the expression of a monarch attending the first committee meeting on republicanism. Her clipboard lay before her. For once, she did not touch it. The association solicitor explained the findings. The management company explained the procedural failures. Janet played the recording. Marjorie submitted a written statement about the inspection. Officer Mercer declined to attend, but provided a 2-sentence incident summary that ended with, "The HOA president entered the equipment voluntarily after repeated warnings and required assistance exiting due to the expected movement of the trampoline surface. The vote to remove Patricia as president passed 98-6. 2 of the 6 votes were proxy forms submitted before the meeting. 1 belonged to Patricia. The other belonged to a homeowner who later claimed he thought the vote concerned pool furniture. Patricia resigned from the board before the second vote could remove her entirely. She stood, gathered her papers, and addressed the room. You may celebrate now, but when standards collapse, you will remember who protected this community." Denise raised one gardening-gloved hand. "Will the purple ribbon be safe?" Patricia left without answering. The board elected Janet Pike interim president. Janet walked to the microphone, looked at the packed room, and said, "Please try to keep things reasonable, yeah?" That was her entire inaugural speech. It received a standing ovation. Over the next 2 months, Juniper Hollow changed in small, visible ways. Basketball hoops stayed out until dinner. Children rode bicycles in the cul-de-sac. Arthur Bell placed a second chair on his porch and sat there every evening with Denise, who changed her wreath ribbon from purple to bright metallic gold. The HOA rewrote its enforcement policy. No fine could be issued without written evidence, notice, an opportunity to respond, and a recorded board decision. Inspection access required proper notice. Resident photographs could not be posted publicly. The phrase community harmony assessment disappeared from official use, although Denise printed it on a mug for me. The association's insurer covered part of the legal review, but refused to reimburse expenses connected to unauthorized enforcement actions. Patricia was personally required to repay £1,920 in improperly charged board expenses, including the amber light. She sold her house 6 months later. The new owners removed the perfectly spherical shrubs and planted sunflowers. Patricia moved into a luxury condominium in central Alder Creek, where the building employed professional management. The balconies were identical, and there was no private lawn for her to measure. I heard she joined the residents' social committee. I also heard the committee disbanded within 3 weeks. Our new trampoline became the unofficial center of the neighborhood. We did not operate it as a public playground. Sal made me promise to use that exact sentence whenever more than 4 children arrived at once. But friends visited. Parents signed permission forms. Shoes lined up beside the access path. Lily taught 2 younger wheelchair users how to transfer onto the bed. Noah invented a game called Orbit Ball that appeared to have no rules beyond shouting "Orbit" and falling over. Sal visited every few months to inspect the frame. Big Mike came once and bounced so gently that the children accused him of being afraid. "I move earth for a living," he said. "I respect forces." Officer Mercer stopped by during the neighborhood summer picnic. He stood beside the enclosure with a paper plate of potato salad. "You staying out of trouble?" he asked. "I have municipal approval." That wasn't my question. Lily rolled past us. "Dad made a maintenance spreadsheet." Officer Mercer nodded. "Of course he did. The original 12-foot trampoline had been called a hazard, so I removed it. In its place, we installed 226 square feet of engineered, inspected, accessibility-compliant recreational infrastructure with city approval, commercial-grade safety surfacing, a 48-inch accessible route, and enough supporting documentation to stun a medium-sized horse. It was twice as large. It was safer. It was legal. And Patricia Bellwether personally demonstrated that it could absorb a full-grown HOA president without causing injury. So let me know in the comments, what is the most ridiculous rule anyone has ever tried to enforce against you? Like the video, subscribe, and join us again here at Sovereign Judgment for another story about paperwork meeting the wrong homeowner. The children still call it the trampoline, but I call it Patricia's Community Harmony Assessment.